No.
Right, so I got to share my screen now. So make sure we got motion and video and the picture, and we'll put it on there. Okay, so move that out of the way and move that. So have you all got a clear picture now?
No, you disappeared, Pete.
Yeah, I know I've disappeared, but have you got a clear picture?
No.
I've got a clear picture of 16 people sitting in front of me, all looking expectantly at the screen.
Right, okay. Yeah, it says I'm sharing my screen here.
Well, you're sharing it with none of us.
You're sharing it with yourself.
Right. I will stop sharing.
Oh, dear.
We should have started earlier.
Yeah. Well, we did. We tried. We did a share before, and
we had it working before.
We had a trial.
Yeah.
So, anything?
No.
Still nothing. Right. Okay. Which case, I will come out and come back in again.
Oh, well, close the door quietly on your way out.
Peter,
I really enjoyed the presentation.
Peter, your last words before you do that is talk among yourselves. Talk among yourselves.
Goes without saying, doesn't it?
70s hairstyles coming back into it.
Yeah.
What hairstyle, Kieran?
The 70s.
The 70s. Right. Right.
Gone past that.
Yeah, yeah.
Has anybody dared to go to the barber in the last year and a half?
No.
No.
Back again.
That'd be a fine thing, wouldn't it?
Okay, I'm going to try share again then, see if this works.
One, Pete.
Oh, they can see you.
Go for it, yeah.
I can see you.
Optimize for motion and video and the sound. How's that?
Ah, we've got a screen. Yes.
That's all right. Okay, good.
We have it.
So, can you now see
Yes.
the presentation?
Q&A.
In questions and answers.
Is it clear? I move everyone away out the window.
Yeah, it's okay.
You're all over there. Right, there we go.
Could you all mute your microphones and then it doesn't interfere with the video, please?
The polite name for that is defenestration.
I don't know if you're allowed to say that, Tom. Right, I'll make a start before something else happens, Pete. It says on my script here, good evening, and welcome to our talk on contesting questions and answers. What we intend to do is to show a few slides and a few videos before we actually open things up to Q&A, as we may well have covered a number of the items already. And you might enjoy seeing the videos anyway. For those of you that don't know me, I don't think there's many. My name is Bernard, call signs G3SHF, and together with Peter, M1PTR, we're going to run through these slides, looking at aspects of contesting that we've been involved with over the years. And after that, we'll take the questions. Next, Pete. That's better. That's lovely. Fine. Okay. So to do this, we're going to address a few questions. What is contesting? Why do we do it? Where do we do it? When do we do it? And how can we start to do it? I guess. But let's start with the first one. Next one, Pete.
Lima, you're 5914. Thank you for the 15. QRZ, Golf 5 Oscar.
QRZ, Golf 3, Lima X-ray portable. Golf 3, Lima X-ray portable. Sugar Mike 6, Fox Kilo Fox. You're 59756. 59756, QSL.
Yes, QSL, thank you very much. You're 59001, number 1.
Thank you for the number 1. Good luck in the contest.
Alpha 0, Radio November Alpha. Thank you, 59551 on Europe 009. QRZ, Golf Mike 5 Oscar. Germany 3, United Sierra Romeo. Thank you. You're 59553 on Europe 009.
Okay, we've all heard the racket that's generated by an SSB contest. But did anybody recognise Tony, who was running the pile-up in there? So well done, Tony. You got a point there from that SM station. So that's the racket, but what is contesting? Well, the RSGB have defined it pretty well. Contesting usually involves a competition to see who can contact the most stations in a set period of time on certain bands within specific rules. But I wonder how many of the members here, and I can't see them now, Pete, I'm going to ask how many actually participate in contests. Thank you, Tom. Yes, I've got the one. I can't see anybody else. But I think the ladder this last year, there are about 27, if I remember rightly, Peter. Nod your head if I'm right. Okay, who participated in the ladder and enjoyed doing that. And the ladder, of course, is a form of contesting. It just doesn't last over a couple of hours or a couple of days. It lasts over 12 months, but nevertheless, it's a competition, and we're contesting with each other. Next slide, please, Pete. So, why do it? As individuals, we can run contests from our homes and compare our station's performance, antennas, and operating skills with others. We can also gain ladder points. So we're back down to the SRS contest again. And we can work more or rarer DXCCs. Sometimes a lot of these DXCC, rare DXCC stations are only visible in contests, so their only opportunity to work them is via the contests. And if you listen around the bands as they are today, there aren't many people on CW providing you with contacts to get the points. So contests can provide us with this input. And I guess the final point is we can have fun. Participating in the contest is fun, and particularly if we participate as a group. The group has all the benefits I've mentioned already, but there's also opportunity to work on more complex stations with more sophisticated equipment, and also see other people operate and actually learn from them. And it's often great fun to work as part of a team. Often I jump in my car up the farm to come back home, and my sides are still aching with all the laughter that's taken place. And it's usually Tom and Dave that's involved in it as well. Okay, next one, please, Pete. So where do we do it? Well, we can contest from home. We've all got radios, antennas, etc. And so there's no reason why we don't contest from home. Contest portable, and then it starts to get interesting. We can go and use a field, use a park, a beach somewhere, or a contest from your car. All definite options, but if we're going to use a field or somebody's park, then I suspect it's beneficial to ask before we do that. Rural locations give us other opportunities. We can often find more space for antennas and try some bigger antennas out there. Or if we can get the height, then we get better propagation and we can get very low noise levels. 80 meters with an S0 noise level is fantastic. And just checking on my gear today, I never get better than S5 at all on 80 meters. So being able to get S0 when we're contesting is absolutely great. We can use most of the bands that are allocated to amateur radio. The LF, MF, HF, VHF, UHF, microwave all have contests from time to time. Our only limitation is we can't work the walk bands at 30 meters, 17 meters, or 12 meters as contests, and isn't permitted by our national societies. We can use most modes: SSB, CW, data, FM. I did put AM down here to begin with, but I'm not sure many people use AM now. Next slide, Pete. So when do we do it? Well, we need to know when the contests are likely to take place. Quite often we can put the rigs on a Saturday afternoon, and all we can hear are the contest taking place. And to find out exactly what is going on, what contest it is, then it's useful to be able to log it on the internet. And UK organised contests are detailed on the RSGB website. It gives the details of the contest, the rules, and there's always a link so that we can actually upload our logs to the robots, save us messing about. Similarly, the international contests are listed on WA7, BNB, or most of them are, I won't say all of them, but a lot of them are, and they're in a chronological order, and it's very useful to find out just what is going on over a period of time. And that does cover most of the contests in the world. Details of these two sites are at the end of the slides. I think it's at the tail end of the slides, or just simply go on Google and do a search on them. Contest Calendar International produces a WB7 site, so you never need to worry about remembering the title of the website. Okay, over to you, Pete. Switch it on, switch it on.
Right. Can you hear me now?
Oh yes.
Good. Okay. Right. I wasn't sure. Well, I wasn't sure whether the mute was just for the PC or for the phone. So right. So thanks, Bruno, for that intro. So how to get started as an individual? Well, where should we begin? Where should we start? Well, from our own experience, best thing to do is the preparation. Do your preparation, like all things. If you do your preparation, when you come to execute it, you're much more comfortable. So especially with the contest, each contest has its own set of rules, and in the rules there are different categories, whether it's a single operator, high power, low power, QRP, what the scoring is, whether it's just a number that increments, or in the case of the WPX, it's your zone number, your area. It's just a fixed number that you get of each time. But all that's in the rules, and the rules are always very well. They seem to follow the same format, so it's quite easy to read once you read the first one. So once you've got an idea what the rules say you have to do and what you need to do to get the points, then best thing is to find an active contest and actually have a listen and just get familiar with the pace of the contest, because some people do go at a pace, others a bit more leisurely, and you just get your head around the process, because it's actually quite repetitive once you've got your if you're familiar with it. It's not as daunting as it may sound when we heard it at the front end, the recording we played earlier on. It is quite repetitive. So once you've heard a contest, you've got an idea of the rules, then you need to decide what you're going to do into your strategy. So there's two basic modes. It's run or SMP. SMP is search and pounce. So the run is simply you find a frequency, you start calling CQ, and people come back to you. And you work them, log them, call CQ again, work them, log them, call QRZ maybe just to keep it going, and log them. That's fine. It can go at a bit of a pace because you're then going at the pace of when people call you rather than you. So you don't get much of a gap between contacts. However, if you do search and pounce, which we'd recommend as a beginner, you can just listen to the frequency, listen to the call sign, listen a couple of times, just make sure you've got the call sign correct, make sure you know where you're up to with the number scheme, if it's a number scheme, and then you can call, and then you make your log, you put your log in, and then you can sit back and have a cup of tea if you want after your first one. Your first one's always a bit of a tense thing, but once you've done that first one, it's a lot easier. You've really got your confidence up, and that's what it's about, just building confidence. And then the third option is you do a mix. Once you feel that you've actually got a bit of experience, you may start off searching and pouncing. You may then find a frequency, a bit of running, and then go search and pounce, which is what we I tend to do when we do the AFS or the club calls. So you get a mix. And then you need to decide which bands you're going to use. Well, again, it's in the rules. They will say which bands are available to use, but you may choose to just do a single band entry, like 20 meters, nothing more, which is under the category. And also know when. Some of them are 48-hour contests, some are 24. Some allow you to do 12 or 24 within that period. So you need to think it through when you're going to operate, and just get yourself really prepared. And then in the strategy, there are two things which we use in the contest up at the farm, and that is operator assistance. And there's two forms of that. The simpler one, is the DX cluster, which we'll tell you about later on. But basically, it's a website that tells you when people are on different bands and different frequencies, and it's maintained simply by people spot other people. So like if I heard Bernard, I could spot him on a frequency, say 14250. And then that would appear on the cluster. The cluster then sends this out periodically to all the other nodes of the cluster. And if you're logged onto a cluster, you suddenly appear that G3SHF is on 14250. And if I go and click on that, I can then listen and work him. The other form of assistance is a skimmer, which tends to be more towards CW. And what that is a receiver using a separate aerial from your transmitting aerial, because of you don't want RF going up the front end. You have a separate aerial kept away from your main aerial, your transmitting aerial, and that listens to CW signals, decodes them, and automatically puts them onto the cluster for you. So it's quite a handy way, and it also gives you signal strength as well. So more of those as we go. But all that strategy is thinking up front what you want to get out of the contest, how you're going to do it. And then at the end of the contest, having worked your socks off and worked lots of contacts and got lots of points, you then have to submit it. Now, Bernard touched on it earlier. A lot of the contests now have robots, online robots, but the format that they expect is generally Cabrillo format. So some are ADIF, but and it depends on your logger what you have. But if you haven't got Cabrillo on your logger and you do it in ADIF, then you need a converter, and the converter is available on the web to convert it into Cabrillo. But basically, all that does, you've got a standard format log. It scores it for you automatically, and then you go on to the website of the particular contests. You fill in the details. It extracts some of it from the file. You fill in the details. You mention Stockport as a radio club, and you click it, and it uploads it, and it tells you if it does a check, tells you if it's okay, and if not, you've got an opportunity to correct the errors. Just beware that a lot of the contests these days have got quite short times after the contest to submit them. They do it deliberately so that you can't go and work out who else is on and correct your log. You're not really supposed to correct your log after the end of the contest, but I guess you can just check it. And then last of all, as a starter, you may decide, I don't want to particularly send my log in. I haven't made many contacts, but I have made some contacts. So there's a category called check log, which is simply, they just take your log and they use it as a reference for other people. If they say, if Bernard said he's contacted me, and then Tom says he's contacted me, and Carson's contacted me, and Kieran's contacted me, say, and I don't submit my log, well, then they haven't got any verification that I actually was on the band. But if I put a check log in, they can see my check log and see that they did actually make a contact. And last of all, as an individual, support. There's lots of knowledge, lots of information within the club. So if at any point you need some help with how to get started, then we're more than happy to help. Okay, so you now decide you're going to do a contest, you're going to have a go, you've thought it through. What do you need? Well, obviously equipment. Doesn't have to be anything sophisticated. You can actually do contests with handhelds. But base station, portable station, whatever you need, but obviously suitable for the contest you're going to do. HF rig, HF contests, yeah. And an antenna. Again, you may just decide I'm going to do one band, I'm going to do 20 meters. You put a simple roach pole with a vertical on, and that could be a simple antenna. But you make sure your antenna matches the bands and makes sure that the antenna is tuned on each of the bands you're going to use. You then need a logging program. Now, back in the day, they used to do it by paper and pen and paper, but you really don't want to be going that way at the moment. You might want to use that for notes, pen and paper for notes, that's handy, but for logging, you really want a computer-based logger. M1MM is a popular one. That supports all the formats, supports all the contrasts. In addition to the logger, you need a CAT interface, some way of getting the frequency from your radio and the band into the logging program so that when you change bands or tune, it actually captures the frequency and the band that you're on. And that means that you don't have to worry about having to write down the frequency each time. It's all automatic. And you'll see when we do a trial QSO, if you're prepared and you're set up, it's really simple and straightforward, and it's quite repetitive. Mention paper and a pen, because you may suddenly find you've got half a call sign, or you've realised you made a mistake. You may just want to write it down, and before the end of the or at the end of the contest, just correct it before you submit your log. You don't want to be changing stuff during the contest, otherwise you'll run the risk of deleting things. And then, from experience, refreshments. If it's an SSB contest, you do quite a bit of talking. Even though you may just be passing your call sign, you need something to lubricate. And I know Kieran has oranges and grapes and things. There's some way of lubricating your throat. It helps. You don't want to be dry running a contest. At the point of the contest, you need information. So you need the time and the duration of the contest. Example there, you pin them up, put them nearby, so you make sure that when you're tuning, you don't go out of band. Make sure you know and the time as well, that you don't start too early or finish too late. And then the other bit, you may laugh, but put your call sign on a piece of paper. Spell it out in phonetics. Add a bit of information like the Work Tool Britain and the IIRU grid reference, because you may get asked those. People do ask things like that during the contest. But your call sign and your phonetics, it's surprising when you do several, especially if you're running. If you're doing a lot contact after contact after contact, you do get tongue-tied and you forget your own call sign. Believe me, it's happened to me. Yeah. Also, a bit of information. This is Evan's domain. Band propagation and when the band is open. There's no point in trying to go on 160 in the middle of the afternoon hoping you're going to make contacts. It ain't open. So you pick your band according to the propagation, according to the time of day. And then last of all, ergonomics. Some of the contests could just, I mean, you choose how long you want to run it. You don't have to do the whole contest. But if you're doing a typical contest, you may be sat there for an hour or two. So you need to be comfortable, and you need the controls and the displays of your kit all ready to hand. You don't want to be stretching each time. You don't want to be moving it. You need to be just sat nice and comfortable and focus on the exchange. Okay, a lot of information there, but we'll hopefully it'll come clear as we go through it. For those who've not done contesting, it does sound daunting, but it's not. It really isn't. You can control the speed of your QSO. You can talk as slow as you wish, and if a guy's wanting to contact you, he will slow down to your speed. And I think on CW, Bernard would probably say that there are some that won't do that, but there are plenty of others that will slow down to your speed. Okay, so typical station. Right, so there's the mouse, there you go. There's my rig. There's my PC with the logger on. The logger's connected via a cat lead going into the back of the radio. This particular setup, I use a separate keyboard so I don't have to stretch and get up here. I've got a mouse, got my pencil and paper there. That's a linear and a power supply. You don't necessarily need linears because a lot of the contests are 10 watts or 100 watts, but this particular one running the full legal power, so I borrowed a linear. And this was the setup that I used in AFS a few years ago. My signs would have been put up at some point before I started, but nice and tidy area, plenty of space, and nice and easy to to sit there for. I think it was a 4-hour contest, that was. Okay, right. So that's the start of a 10. Now Bernard will give us some tips of what we need, how to get those points. Over to you, Bernard.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Putting it all into practice, I guess before entering, you need to get some idea of what is going on in a particular contest. Or if you haven't done any contesting before, then have a listen to any contest. But the point we would make is listen and listen and listen, and really try to digest what is going on and understanding what is going on before you make a start and even press the mic button. As Peter mentioned, most certainly start with search and pounce. It's a much easier way into contesting. You can take your own time and you don't need to rush, and you won't be letting anybody down. If you try to run too early, then you may find you've got a pile up that suddenly generates, and then you've got to learn how to handle that pile up and make sure you record everything properly, and things do go awry. So start off with the search and pounce, nice and easy, and get familiar with the routine of a contest, because it is a routine, and repetitive routine all the way through the contest. And the nearer you can make it to be a repetition, the more accurate you're going to be. Use a headset. One or two of the guys have tried using hand microphones for contesting, and it really is hard work. If you're trying to use your fingers to type on a keyboard to put a station's call in or the number he's given you, and then you want to go back with a microphone in your hand, it really is difficult. So a headset is worth its weight in gold. Plus the fact you can make sure your speech is at a consistent level for the other stations, and otherwise you're going to be turning around and away from your microphone. Start off listening for CQs or QRZs, and if you hear stations calling CQ or QRZ, and these guys are running, they wanted people to call them, and when you're ready, you give them a call. All you do is just give your call sign, give it once. If there's lots of people, then all right, it becomes competitive, and it depends who's going to be shouting the loudest. But at some point in time, you're going to get through. So all they want from you is your call sign. Before doing that, I always enter the call in the logging frame on the logging program. So before I'm actually calling the other station, I've got his call sign in my log. On occasions, when numbers are being exchanged, and a lot of the contests, the numerical exchange starts at 001 and goes up. Some contests it goes up to over 1,000. But we're exchanging those numbers. Sometimes it's your zone that you're exchanging. So typically England would be 14. So you report 5914 and exchange the number. But if you're listening to the station, then you've got a chance to jot that number down and get it in your logging frame. Otherwise, the over can finish, and he can finish his routine on that particular frequency, and you've lost him. So get that number while he can. Often I don't put the number he's given. If it's a serial series, I give the next number, so I know that if it does come back to me, I've already got the correct number in my log, and all I need to do at the end of the QSO is just press enter, and it's logged, it's saved. So that's safe. Also, it's useful to make sure that he has your call sign correct. So when he comes back to you, if the call sign isn't correct, then go back to him and give your call sign. Don't be tempted to give your number and then ask him for his call sign again, or tell him you've got your call sign wrong, because he'll be on to his next QSO. You'll be in his log and he won't want to talk to you anymore. So you may have problems getting back to him to actually clarify it. So first time round, check he's got your call sign. If not, say no, give the call sign again. And the guys know what's going on. They expect this. It happens time again. Often there's that much noise that getting a complete call sign in one go is very, very difficult. So you need to work at it. And the same applies to your number. If there's any doubt that he's got your number correctly, then repeat it again. at some stations, when they confirm they've worked you, they'll actually confirm that they received your number, give you your number. Thank you for the 1-4 or whatever it happens to be. Okay, use standard phonetics and scripts. We've got lists of standard phonetics. I think I must have a dozen lists of standard phonetics, and they're all different. But all right, stick to a list and try and use it. If there's problems with actually the guy understanding what you're saying to him, he's not catching your call sign, then try and change the phonetics, try different ones. And a technique I use quite often is to use the same phonetics he used when he called me. So use the same, and he should be familiar with the phonetics he's using. Okay, try use a script, and you can put the script and put it as Peter has shown already for the frequencies, etc. Put it near where you can see it, so you can actually look at it, and you can actually go through the script, and then you get it right. And try and get the script to have a minimum number of words, because it all equals time. And the more you can actually trim it down, then the more contacts you can have, and you can have a greater score. So get that timing right, and no using superfluous words like good afternoon, or 73s, or QSL, or my QTH, or what is the weather like with you? Nothing like that, because it eats up time. And never do what one of our contest members is very good at doing when he gets into a snarl of a pile up and he can't actually hear any particular call sign coming through. He comes out with a statement something similar to, gentlemen, please form an orderly queue. That actually stopped all the QRM for about 10 seconds, and then the Italians twigged and they were straight back in, so it didn't do any good anyway. So don't do it again, Tom. Okay, I think that just about covers the tips we've got. But the main thing is listen, understand what's going on. If you're going to use software, make sure you're familiar with that software, and that you are able to quickly amend any entry you've made if you need to do so. It's amazing how often that you do get into a snarl up and you have to work back. And that's one of the reasons to have the pen and paper that Peter mentioned. When you do get into a bit of a mess, you can write down the issue and not relying on yourself to find your way around the software that we're using for contesting. Okay, Pete.
Right, so, okay, all those good tips, and they have been put into practice as we've done their contests. They got every one. We've applied them. So so what we're going to do now, we're actually going to go through a typical QSO in a contest. So what we've got on display, this is the M1MM logger. This is the log entry window, and it's shown twice, at the beginning of the QSO and at the end of the QSO. So as Bernard said, the scenario here is that Bernard is actually running, and I'm going to call him. I'm doing search and pounds, Bernard's doing running. So I've been listening to Bernard now. He's up to number 3, and sorry, no, I'm up to number 3. I'm up to number 3. He's up to number 5, and I've put his call sign in ready. So I'm actually all set now. On this screen, that tells you the frequency you're on. We're on 80 meters. It tells you you're on lower sideband up here. That's his call sign. The standard exchange is always 59. Occasionally you may get someone big clever and giving you different, but it's generally 59. That's your serial number. It automatically increments as we go through the contest. That's the received report from the other station that we're going to work, and that's where you put his number. Okay, these other pins are used, or other buttons are used for the automatic. See here, we're on search and pounds. That clicks over to run when you start pressing the CQ button, and there's other coded buttons. But again, from a logging point of view, we've got some extra information which we'll be sharing probably next week about how to set up M1MM for a logger, and it's all in there. So here we go. So scenario is Bernard's working like mini pile up, and I'm going to listen to him. So off you go, Bernard, and I'll give you a call.
Secret test, Golf 3 Sierra Hotel Foxtrot.
Mike 1, Papa Tango Romeo.
Mike 1, Papa Tango Radio, you're 59005.
You're 59003.
Thank you for the 03. CQ contest, Golf 3 Sierra Hotel Foxtrot.
Right, at that point I've hit enter, and I've got his 5 in, and I've got it, and it's as simple as that. You do that. Now, talking before, when we're saying that you don't have to actually do an actual QSO, what you can do, if you really just want to build up your confidence, you can tune into a station, listen to him, you don't have to speak, and you can just do pretend QSO with him. You can go through the motions and you can key it in as if you were making a contact with him and listen to what he does. And just make sure you press the buttons in the right order and log it. You can always delete it from your log. There's ways of doing it, but that's a good way of just getting some practice. Just listen to a few QSOs, pretend you're working them, you log them, and that just gets you in the right sequence. And because you can get a little bit of stage fright when you do your first one, but it's easily overcome. Right, next one, Bernard.
Yes, okay. SRS and contesting. SRS contest records go back into the 1930s. In the earlier days, they were usually organised by the operators who intended to do the operating. And typically Ray Gerard G3NOM and also Barry Simpson G3 PEKED used to do a lot of operating for the club, and they tended to organise the contest in the earlier days. But all bands and all modes have been used on HF and VHF, CW, SSB, digital, no doubt in the early days AM more than the SSB was used. RTTY is within the digital name. So the club has been involved in all these sort of activities. They've used locations all around Stockport, thrashing around trying to find a suitable site. Marple Ridge was used for quite a number of years until the lady that owned it sold the place on. Lyme Park has been a venue, and Woodford. In fact, there's a members' garden in Woodford we used to use behind the big garden centre there. The garden was quite a large garden, but I remember us taking the trailer tower up there and putting antennas up in this guy's garden. So everybody had to walk down his drive to access the contest station, which must have been fun when the shift was changing at midnight and 4 o'clock in the morning. Other places we've used, Bowstones have been used by the VHF guys, and I've got a picture in a few minutes just to show you them up there. And of course now we're using Common Barn Farm for quite a lot of our contests, not all of them, but quite a lot. Okay, Peter, please. Okay, so there's a few shots here of the contest from the early days, 1950s. I don't remember this, but there's a setup there. We can see, and I'm thinking it's Eric McFarland who's got his back towards us with the headphones on, sending some CW there as part of the contest. On the table, I recognise an old CO100 receiver, the one I started operating with in the 1960s on there, and I guess the rest of it was homemade kit. Moving on to NFD, in 1967, we've got Ray Gerard and Barry Simpson. Ray's on the right, Barry on the left. Again, there's a receiver. I remember the old HRO receiver with its big plug-in coils, but it was a joy to use, and the engineering of it was very, 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 very good. American made, World War II vintage. So I guess both my receivers are featured there, going back in time. Next one, please, Pete. Okay, here's here's the VHF contingent, and there's a 2-meter Yagi up there. I don't know how many element it was, and you can see three likely lads are at the bottom of the mast, and they were to the trig point on Lyme Park near Bowstones, and the three there. One was Gary Bleeds. We don't see the club very often now. Usually turns up for the rally each year. Christopher Simcock, young man there, and the other offender is our Nigel Roscoe. He used to be a regular member of the 2-meter contest group, and I think the contest was side banned. So the guys are there, and I think at a different time when they've had an awning up of some kind and a car there. And Christopher Simcock, M1WEB, if I remember rightly, is in front of the red car. I think that's Nigel's car, and then Nigel there with Christine Simcock doing the logging. And I guess David Simcock's taking the pictures. So that's a VHF contingent, and they call themselves the bar packers rather than backpackers, I think. Next one, please. Here we are, getting to modern times, 2006. I was trying to recall how the two people were on the operating table there. The guy on the right I just can't put a name to, but in the end I managed to recognise the blue shirt. I think I've still got it somewhere, but that's one of my early days with SRS and contesting.
It was Bob. Bob was the chap. He was the guy that was sat with me on the very first contest contact I made.
Right. Okay. Bob who?
Don't know his second name, but yeah, Big Bob.
Big Bob. Do you remember his call sign?
No.
All right. All right. Yeah, I couldn't place him though, Pete, but I must have known him. The photographs on the right are showing the Woodford wet ground that we used for a couple of years, and that's if you're going out of Bramhall towards Woodford, as you get to the new road, that's just on the right hand side, and it's I think there's 6 or 7 football pitches side by side all the way up the field, and it was a terrific length to use, and we decided we're going to put a rhombic up, and a rhombic, for those who don't know, is if you look down on it, it's a diamond shape aerial made from wire, and we used an 80-foot trailer tire at one end of it, and the feed point at that end, and then we had 3 60-foot masts made up of 3 sections of 20-foot aluminium, and we'll show you in a few minutes just how we managed to get in the air. But on this particular one, they managed to get the first 2 up all very nicely. When one of the visitors, who was physical fitness fanatic, and he wanted to demonstrate just how strong he was, he grabbed the mast and pushed it up, and it went up very, very nicely and slowed as it got to the top. And it kept on going because somebody had forgotten to tie the guys off at the back of the antenna, and it hit the ground with one hell of a thud. Anyway, luckily it wasn't damaged, and nobody was damaged, and so we got it up eventually and used it. So the rhombic antenna, each leg of the antenna, the 4 legs, was 520 feet. I remember calculating it out. So the antenna overall was 1,000 foot long. And Ron Smith, who was a chairman from Manchester South Group, who used to join us operating from time to time, he ranked it was the biggest dummy load in the world. But on the other hand, the DX cluster showed reports from the Americans saying we're the strongest signal from Europe into the States. And the gain we got out of that rhombic on paper was supposed to be 14 dBs, which was tremendous. No wonder they thought we were strong, but what Ron was doing, I really don't know. Anyway, so we'll show you how we put that up in a later video. That's 2006. What have we got next, Pete? SRS contesting group. Right, this brings us up to date a bit, I think. The organisation was formed in 2007. as a group interested in doing some serious contesting, we'd entered the CQ Worldwide SSB and CW contest from Brian Gale's QTH out in Mobley, and it really whetted our appetites. We wanted to do more, and so the search was on to find a suitable location, and we eventually Jim Barlow, G3 BOU, sadly Silent Key now, he went round kind of the Peak District looking for suitable places, and he came up with Common Barn, which we've used ever since. We have regular review and planning meetings held for usually 6 major contests per year. We tend to review the last contest to find out what's broken, what went wrong, what could we do better, and then we try and build it into the next plan. And then we plan our work, do the contest, then start again with the review and the planning. So we're constantly looking to try and fix things that go wrong. And up at Common Barn, there's seldom an event that goes by where something isn't broken, damaged, burnt out. Got caught up with the sheep. And there was I'm just remembering the time when we actually got an antenna wire wrapped around the leg of the ram, and we actually hoisted the ram off the ground. So instead of the antenna going up, the ram went up. It didn't seem to like that. The group is self-funding, but we do have an annual donation that's very welcome from SRS to cover our insurance costs and the expenses to cover the RST contests we do on behalf of the club. I would emphasise that all SRS members are very welcome to come and visit us, either while we're putting the station together or while the contest's taking place. Coming up, and with luck there'll be somebody there to show you around. If you can let us know beforehand, we can make sure there's somebody up there to show you around and what's going on. And if you really are keen, we can get you sat with one of the operators, and you can see what's going on, and we can perhaps get you involved with doing a bit of the logging with the headphones on. And eventually it's possible for the microphone to go across to you and you can actually take over the operating. Is that right, Heather? No comment from Heather. But that's exactly what Heather did, and I believe she enjoyed herself doing it as well, but she's keeping very quiet.
No, I'm here. Yeah, I did enjoy it. Yeah, you did throw me in at the deep end.
Yeah, you will. It's the only way it does work, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
All right, so it's good. So we do really want to get as many of the SRS members up there and involved that do want to participate. You can come up and just help us put the station together, see what we do. You can come and watch us operate, or you can sit in and operate. Any of the options is fine. And if you do want to join the group, then by all means tell us that and do join the group and get involved in all the operations. So while we are out of the way up in Reno, we don't want to be separate from the rest of the membership of the club. Okay, the setup, well, we've got various multi-band antennas, Yogis mainly. We have used vertical multi-bands in the past, but we don't use them too much now. We use monoband antennas as well, and we keep trying to refine these and improve them. The rigs we use are FT DX 5000s, and the amplifiers are Yaesu quadra amps that will run up to 1,000 watts. The rigs and the amps are actually owned by individual members of the group, but the antennas we use, the coaxes, the caravan, the trailers we use are owned by the group as a totality. And so that's where most of the finance goes. Computing is done on a network system that's set up by Pete, and we actually use a program called WinTest, which is a French program, which we have to pay for, or we use M1MM Plus, which does reasonably well for us. And also, as Pete mentioned earlier on, we link to the cluster to get inputs to our band map so we can see what's going on, or a local skimmer, which in effect is a local receiver that does present information to the band map. And if the skimmer can hear the station, then our main rigs can hear the station. So there's no doubt about it. With DX cluster, well, you're never too sure whether you should be able to hear the station or not. Setup usually takes about 4 or 5 days, while the teardown takes 1 day, possibly just over into 2 days, but it certainly comes apart a lot faster than it goes together. Okay, Pete. Okay, so here's a shot of some of the activity going back to 2010. We've got the mast on the left-hand side, which I think is the first tower we got, which is an 80-foot trailer tower. And it's cranked up. At the top of it, we've got the antenna, which I think is a TH6 there. Not too sure. You've got to count the elements there. But a 6-element Yagi, and it's for 20, 15, and 10. Above the Yagi is a dipole, a rotary dipole, up to probably about 80, 85 feet up there. Below the Yagi, you can see a cross member. Thanks, Pete. And the cross member is a 4-foot tube of alloy, and we attach the halyards to the end of that and hoist up our dipoles. Excuse me. Usually an 80-meter, 160-meter dipole goes up there, so we have them fed at a long point, and they're set up as inverted V's, and we have great fun resonating them each time at the various parts of the band we want them to be on. It's quite challenging. You think it'd be easy. Once you made one, it would work, but life isn't like that. I think each time we go up there, we've got to change it in some way to actually tweak it and get it back to the frequency we want. On the right-hand side, we can see, I think it's Kieran there, operating the station. The computer display on the right-hand side, which is the old-fashioned type of display by the look of it. Keyboard there. We've got, I think the laptop is behind the screen, if I remember rightly. And then above the FT1000 transceiver there is there, there's a linear, again 1000-watt linear, which used valves, and one of our members gave the linear to the group with the spare valves. Unfortunately, none of the valves worked, so we're back to square one. And the valves, I think they were on eBay. We could get them for £175 each, which we weren't too keen about doing. And in the end, I managed to get some Russian tank valves from Berry Club. Don't know what they've been doing with them, but they weren't using them. Pete managed to manufacture bases for these valves so we could force air up through them to keep them cool. They're only the valves themselves are only about the same size as the control knobs you can see on the front of the linear. But we got that set up, and that's worked for many years, giving us lots of QSOs. So the investment of £15 per valve was pretty good from the group's point of view compared to the 175. So that's it. So that's one station. Normally, as we're set up, we operate in a multi-2 mode. So we have 2 operators operating at the same time. I guess the only condition there is they can't be on the same band. And we have filters to prevent damage from one transmitter to one receiver taking place if they do happen to switch to the wrong bands or to the same band. So that's just about it. So there should be somebody else sat to the left of Kieran with exactly the same setup, beavering away, making contacts. We keep it that way. It's more interesting. The two of us can be doing some operating rather than one single person operating. But also there's a safety factor. If we're up at the farm there through the night, then the guys are on their own, and we just don't fancy anybody taking any harm because of any problems there. We do get some excessive weather up there, very heavy weather, and I guess anything can happen. And we have had some of our poles, masts come down in the past, and gradually we've improved our skills and our designs so that they are more robust. Next one, please, Pete. So here we are. This is one of our masts going up. In the last picture, you saw the tower, and the second station. At that stage, in 2010, we were using masts that we erected, single pole masts. So you can see one here. You can see, I think it's Carston supporting the gin pole, and each of the sections of the mast is a 10-foot section of 2-inch aluminium scaffolding tubing. So, and right at the top, I think it's a 4 or 5 foot section. So we've got about 55 feet now set up like that. But to kind of explain how it's got to that stage, because if Carston pulls that down, then the mast goes up, and we just secure the guys at the left-hand side behind the guy with the blue anorak on, which I suspect could be me, because I've still got the blue anorak. And the operating caravan is just in the left-hand corner there. You can see it there. So can we roll the film, please, Pete?
Yep, rolling the film. Well, today is Saturday, the 12th of March 2011, and we're up at Common Barn Farm. Just this is Stopwatch Radio Society. Team getting ready for the contest next weekend, which is the Russian DX competition. Walk out of the field. Got open field. The old radio operating caravan. And the antenna. And if you look over here, the new caravan that arrived today. Now this is the place we're leaving. I think there'll be one last contest in here. And then when we've done that, we're going to be moving across to the new one. And you can see the amount of equipment we have at the moment. Antennas, coaxes, switch boxes. This is all part of the setup that we're doing today. You can see the chaps are in the field. You can see that. We'll go and see what the... Right, here we are at the top of the field. I've got Tom, M0DCG, is organising us all. And we're going to put up this, what's called a lightweight mast, about 50 feet, and that's going to carry dipoles. So all laid out on the ground. And they're going to put a gin pole. That's a gin pole they're going to put up. That helps it, gets it vertical. So you'll see how it's Kieran, M5K JM. Tony, M6 SMI. 2E0 SMI. Just past his intermediate. Well done, Tony. And the back we've got Carson, G0 slide piece. So, let's see what they're doing. We'll come back in a minute when they're ready to launch. Right, here we are again. They're now back after a short delay. And they're going to put it up in sections. So the right hand side is the antenna base section, and the left hand side is the gin pole. So that's the first section up. So they get the guys set up, and then they then go and put another section on top. So just watch them do that, and then we'll come back in a minute. Okay, we've now put an extra length on. Take the weight, so the gin pole then pulls at an offset and stops the pull from bending as it's pulling up. So it's pulling it. Pull it up, you see. That's Bernard, G3 SHF. Oh, that's about, I think that's They are 10-foot sections, so that's about 30 feet at the moment. So they have to then set the guys, get them all tight on 3 sides, drop it down again, and put the extra piece. So, back in a minute. Well done.
Oh.
Yes.
You know what? We've got to curb it now, and we've got to start here.
No, we don't need to, Tom. We don't need it straight. We're all right.
Okay.
You
want a little bit on this one, Carsten? A little, half an inch?
Alright, it's all right.
Right. Okay.
How's it going, Tom?
It's gone very well. Yep. Great, that was great.
Director?
I'd give ourselves 7 out of 10 today.
Well done. I think that went up very well indeed,
It
Tom.
did in the end, but in actual fact, we got off to a bad beginning, actually. In fact, the fielders, in fact, Winger were definitely on the slow side.
And on that note, I think we'll pass us back to the studio.
Yes.
Don't tell me you're shorter.
Let them all have the credits.
Right up.
Okay, so back to your slides. So that was that.
Right, thanks for that, Peter. Yeah, so I guess that's how we put the 60-foot one up at Woodford, except it went up in 3 sections rather than the 5 or 6 that we used there. Once we got used to it, we no longer use that particular mast, that particular height. We replaced that second mast with another trailer tower, so we've got 2 80-foot trailer towers that we base our antenna systems on, and they're very, very similar. So we can get same dipoles, similar Yagis, similar 40-meter antennas on each station. So the performance is very, very similar, is our observation now. Okay, thank you for that, Pete. Can we go to the next one? Okay, I mentioned the contest program the group had, and this summarizes it really. In January, we have the RSGB, AFS, CWN, and sideband contests, which are individual contests. We all operate from our own homes, and then we put entries in. And when we mentioned Stockport RS, I think it is the RSGB, then they pick that out and they group the entries together appropriately. So we are a team, but we're a distributed team for those contests. In March, we've got the CQ Worldwide WPX contest, SSB, that's coming up in a few weeks, last weekend in this month. And the WPX is indicating that the multipliers for the contest are the different prefixes you work. So different frequent G3s, one prefix, G1, G2 are all different prefixes, and we're all add as individual multipliers. And there's some inventive people around the world, and there's some wonderful call signs suddenly come on the band for this contest. And when you look at the logs you're putting in, then probably 1 in 3 of the contacts you make it turns out to be a multiplier somewhere. So there's a lot of multipliers get involved. At the end of May, last weekend in May, there's the CW version of that contest. And then in June, we have the RSGB NFD National Field Day. It's a CW contest. It's a 24 event. One of the characteristics of it is that it's got to be a portable station, not a fixed station, and you can't start building that portable station until 24 hours before the start of the contest. Now the contest starts on a Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock, which means you can't start building the station until 4 o'clock on the Friday. And usually we have a setup very similar to the one we have at the main site. It usually takes us 4 or 5 days, but for some reason we're able to manage to get this done in 1 day. It must be productivity, something like that. Somebody waving a big stick to get us working a bit harder, but invariably we get it ready just in time, and away we go with our contest with a pretty good station, I've got to say, for the NFD contest. So in July, we then have the RSGB IOTA contest. I'll tell you a bit more about that in a few minutes. Again, it's a 24-hour contest, but it's both CW and phone, CW and sideband. And we usually travel away for that contest, but we'll come on to that. In October and November, we have the CQ Worldwide DX SSB and CW contests. They're 48-hour contests at the end of the respective months, and these contests are they're the biggest contests of the season, and you can get several thousand stations getting involved with operating this contest, and we rather enjoy that one. And when it gets towards the end of October, November, and the weather does tend to change on us, and we can have some very cold, very wet, very windy days setting up the station. All good fun though. And then finally, the various dates through the year, there's the RSGB championship contests, which are usually on 80 metres and last an hour and an hour and a half. But if you need more details, I think the best guy to tell you about is Tom, who tends to participate in these. Right, Peter. Oh, here we are now. IOTA contest, Islands of the Air. And for the last 4 or 5 years, well, not last year, but previous 4 or 5 years, we've travelled away from the UK to do this particular contest. We've actually gone onto an island, and the islands visit, we started off going to Holy Island, which gave us a prefix of GW, and we used the G50 call sign for license, and so we became GW50. And then Tom took us to meet all his family up in Orkney, and then we became GM50, and then we went to Rathlin as GI50. Rathlin's off the northwest corner, an island off the northwest corner of Northern Ireland, and it's probably about 20 minutes, 25 minutes boat ride to get across from the mainland. So that was quite interesting in its own right. And then we went to Southern Ireland, and we went to Arranmore Island, which is off the northwest coast of Ireland, off the Donegal coast. And again, the ferry journey was about 20-25 minutes across to the island, and we've been there several years. I guess we kind of like it there, or it's still a challenge for Kieran and Pete, because they're trying to drink all the Iron Drive Guinness, and they haven't succeeded yet.
No, we need to go back again.
Try harder. So, but it's rather nice, and the photograph on the left hand side shows the mast. We take a trailer tower across there, which is interesting in its own right. and get that set up, and that's just for one of the stations. That's for the sideband station. On top of it, I think there's a TH5 antenna, and probably above that is a 40-meter rotary dipole, and then below that we'll have the 80-meter dipole. Not sure whether we have 160. Do we have 160 for that contest?
No.
All right. So it's just the 80-meter dipole that's from the support a bit lower. We're actually going down quite a steep hill where you can see the trailer park there, and we've got some of these trailer ties, trailer webbings and stakes into the side of the track to secure the tow bar of the trailer, so the whole lot doesn't descend into the Atlantic. The station was operated from the cottages, and you can see the square gable end of one of the cottages there, which is quite good accommodation for us. And we actually just clear the rooms where we're going to use of all the furniture and put all our kit in there. To give you an idea, the lighthouse is 70 feet high, and it's up on top of a 150-foot cliff, and there's more or less a straight dive from the top of the lighthouse into the sea, if you took it that way. So it's very close to the edge of the sea, and in one of the pubs we tend to frequent. There aren't many, but we try them all. But in one of them there's a photograph, an old black and white photograph, and it actually shows a wave coming over the top of that lighthouse, which always bemused me. Fortunately, we haven't seen anything like that. It tends to be quite pleasant. It doesn't rain for very long. It just quickly squalls and moves on. So we get plenty of blue skies and blue seas there. Very pleasant. On the right again, you can see Kieran operating, or pretending to operate, not sure which, station. He's using an FT DX5000 there underneath the laptop that we're using for logging. On the right hand side, looking at the column there on top, I can see a Morse key, which is great. Occasionally we can use each station for sideband and CW. So the Morse key's there ready. Underneath is a power meter. Underneath that is the rotor controller for the mast, the motor on the top of the mast, so we can point the antenna in the right direction. Under that is a bandpass filter. It's a multi-band bandpass filter. When the rig changes band, then it changes the band of the bandpass filter. It also changes the band of the linear is working to. It changes the antenna relays that are out near the masts. So we have one long coax going to each mast, and then a switch box at the bottom, and switching the required antenna to match the band the rig's on. So that's set up. But I particularly like the quadra amplifier that's beneath the bandpass filter, and that dial there, that orange dial, always reminds me of years ago when I was probably 6, 7 or 8, and my father came home, and he brought with him what he called a wireless, and it is in a big wooden box. And you like this, Kieran? It was a Murphy radio, or Murphy wireless, and since then, years after that, when I got in my early teens and started making crystal sets and TRF sets, everything was radio then, and it always caused me to think, well, what is the difference between wireless and radio? Why are there two different names? But anyway, clearly Kieran's operating a radio, because a wireless looks like this. So there's your wireless for you. To make sure that we've got all the kit we need for the station across to Ireland or wherever we are going, then we have a session down at Walthew House for an evening and put the whole station together, check everything works, check the computers work, check we get power into the dummy loads, etc. So we know we've got all the component parts and leads, and then take it all apart, put it all in boxes that aren't opened again until they get across the island or wherever we're going. And that way we manage to keep everything together and make sure we aren't missing any individual components. Okay, so that's wireless for you, IOTA style. Pete.
Right, okay, so that's the end of the chalk and talk. So there's a couple of films here, just to the last one you've seen, that was the lightweight mass we've seen. But we'll show you a couple of films here. It's only short, a minute and 3 minutes and so. First one is me in the AFS. You know, we saw the photograph of the station in the single user station early on. Well, this is using that station, single operator, single transmitter, full licensed power. It had an 80-meter antenna on the half. It was actually fastened up on the tower. Well, it could have been the lightweight map, but we put it on the tower, and it was inverted V at 70 feet. So it's got a plate. It's a bit quiet to start with, but then you then can see what I have to put up with. And it was the AFS in January. The weather was not so good, but we insisted on doing it. And in the caravan, there was just me and Dave Bates, who's G0LZL, who helped me put up the antenna. But I know when we put up the antenna, we were shouting across the field, and we're only like about 20 feet away from each other, and we couldn't hear a word we said. It was the wind was blowing a gale. But this is the first film. It's all nice and peaceful. That's the old caravan. That's the station you've seen before. Thank you for the 262. Good luck in the contest. QRZ, Mike 1 Papa, Tango Radio. Golf 4 Charlie Whiskey Hotel, thanks for the call. You 59293. I give 351. Good score. Good luck. Well, it's 6 o'clock, it's blowing a gale, and I think we've done. I've been in the ship, isn't it? Are we going to evacuate before it goes over? I think we better have to. But we end up in Kettlefield. So you get an idea what it was like. It was good fun, really good fun, and I think I had my best score in AFS that I've ever had. I think it was well through 300. I think it was. It was excellent. And being up at the farm, the noise level, Burnham was about noise level of S5 round here. Up at the farm, it was like S1, S0. It was you could hear everybody. And it was really good to work. And what you saw there was I was on the run frequency, running one after another. And you can see it does get a bit frenetic. Okay, the next one I'm going to go, again, short film, is extract from the IOTA 2018. We had 2 stations going, a CW and SSB, multi-operator, 2 transmitter, with operating 1,000 watt because we're in Ireland. We had an Irish call sign, so I think the legal limit in the Irish is it 1,600 watts burn? I think it is. It's
no, it's 1,500.
1,500, yeah. So we will, you know, we could use a decent amount of power as opposed to the UK where you're only 400, but could use a decent power. We had antennas that you saw. We had the Yagi, a multi-band antenna, Yagi. We had some phased verticals for 40. And I think we had, I can't remember when this one, there was a phased or a single one for 80. We now have phased 80 meters. And we had spotting stations, which spotting stations very quickly are, whilst you've two operators transmitting, one CW, one SSB, then the other members of the group can be listening around the band. And if they hear a station, because they also have access to the log, if we've not worked it, and it's what is called a multiplier, then multipliers give you more points, obviously, because it gets multiplied by the number of QSOs you made at the end of the contest. So when you're up to something like about 200 QSOs, then every multiplier is 200 points. So you can see how that works. And there's spotting stations. So I'm going to play that, and you can see it's we're on the west coast of Ireland, exposed to the Atlantic, but conditions surprisingly are much calmer than they were up at Common Barn. So let's play this.
Pushes, and I pull the middle one.
Any Delta Alpha Charlie, please? You're at 121. Roger, Roger. I don't suppose you'd fancy swapping the weather. 73. Cheers.
Echo Juliet 6 Kilo Papa. Yeah, QSL, please copy 591930, Echo Uniform 121.
Okay, so you enjoyed those. The last bit about the no idea, that's attributed to Tom. He one of his favourite sayings whilst we were setting up, you'd ask him a question, where are the coaxes for the 80 metre? I've no idea. What have you got the I don't know, you know, the parameter, say, or whatever, or have you got something else? And I've no idea. But Tom coined the phrase. I mean, it was all in good fun, But as Bernard said, we just, every time Tom came out with that, we just set about laughing because you knew what he was going to say, no matter what you asked him. Anyway, okay, back to you, Bernard, to tie the ribbons.
Right, I didn't know we had any ribbons to tie. Let's have a look. Oh, yes. Contesting. Q&A. That was Evan's idea, wasn't it?
I suppose the question now we should say, Bernard, is there anybody else out there?
well, I can see 6.
Oh, good. Okay, I can't see anybody. I can come into full screen mode now, I guess.
Yeah, you can. And then we can see.
Can I just say I've got to go now? Thank you for the questions.
Right.
Thanks.
Oh, okay.
Okay then. Bye.
Bye.
Right. So we've got that. What have I done?
Stop sharing.
Stop. I've lost the screen. Just a minute. It'll come back in a bit. No, well, I'll stop sharing if I know what to click. So, go on, Bernard. You carry on talking. Ask us any questions. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Got it.
Oh, well done.
You want to ask a question? Put your hand up, then I can see who's talking.
Go on, David.
Yeah, as a beginner, how does DX cluster differ from RBN?
Bernard?
I'm just trying to get my mind around that.
Okay, well, I can answer it.
Go on.
So, RBN effectively are, we talked about the skimmer being a receiving station. Well, RBN uses receiving stations, not necessarily at not at your own QTH, but at various places around the world. I think they're up to well over 100, nearly 200 stations now. They're listening to the signal, the Morse signal generally, and when they decode it, and they then have an internet connection, put the decode back on the internet, which becomes a spot. A DX cluster, the way a spot gets onto the DX cluster is a person actually then spots it. Now, your logging program has got built into the logging program a button where if you've just worked a station, you can click it and it will automatically log it, or you can manually type in the frequency and the call sign and you can log it there. So RBN, like the skimmer, it's automatic, all automatic. The DX cluster is generally there's a person somewhere that does the spotting.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. That's excellent, and
Okay.
Ben as well.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Yeah, so you got a choice of a machine or a person. One to the other.
Just that's a good point actually, because the machines, apart from maybe occasional decode problem, but generally they're more reliable. You have to watch the DX cluster because sometimes, and we don't know whether this is deliberate or whether they just dyslexic. What's on the cluster is not necessarily the right call sign. They put what they've heard, and more than once, and it's dead easy. You just click on the item on the cluster, and it automatically puts into your band map, and you work them. So when you're doing that, you need to listen to what you hear.
Yeah.
Several times I've clicked it, and what I hear is not the side. They might have got like a P instead of a B.
Yeah.
So they put the wrong call sign. Just be wary if you're taking it off the cluster.
Yeah, I think it's part of our routine as operating when we're using the band map, and we do use the band map a lot to progress kind of search and pounce. It's always worth checking that what you hear is exactly what's been reported.
Important.
On the RBN, then they can have several inputs for a particular station that's heard, and I think the machine itself starts to make sure that they're all looking the same, but it's got some form of algorithm which actually makes sure you improve the quality of it rather than just being a single report coming through.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.
But both useful tools. Anybody else? Peter, any questions? Evan? But bear in mind, I might ask you to answer it.
Oh dear. I'll keep my mouth shut. Yeah.
Go on, Evan.
I was going to say with the RP can be useful in a general sense. I mean, it can give you an idea of conditions I mean, you can use it to. I mean, what we use it at the farm for, it just goes directly into our band map. But if you go onto the actual website, the RBN website, reversebeaconnetwork.org or whatever it is, you can sort of select. Say you want to know what stations are heard in England from the US and Canada. You can select a filter on 20 meters. You can select a filter which gives you just those spots. So it'll only be American stations heard, or American Canadian stations heard by people with SDRs in England. So you get an idea of, is the states open or not? I mean, if for example, sort of giving 20 dB and stuff like that, it's quite open to someone with 100 watts in a wire. And you can use it for these sorts of things. And the other thing, I won't blather on too much, but the other thing the RBN does is actually listens for beacons. So CW beacons, particularly, on 10 meters, for example. This is the thing about the RBN, it's always listening, whereas the spotters are only really generally looking for DX or sort of special stations.
That's right.
Whereas the RBN just picks up everything, assuming it's RETI or CW or FT8. So it's certainly useful.
Thanks, Evan. Any more? No?
I suppose one question I've got is how many people have actually done contesting? How many people have entered into a contest? Put your hands up. Oh, quite a few. Yeah, quite a few. And I suppose the other question is, from this now, how many people have we put off from ever attending a contest? Or how many people have fancy having a go?
I'll have to go now, Pete. Bye.
I did say to Bernard there was a risk that we'd frighten people off.
I want to go and do a contest at Rado's location.
Yeah.
Background's got me going.
I must admit, I like the background. Yeah.
Well, I have a few little ones running around here. That's why I just put it on. So please excuse me.
The other thing is for Pete Singleton, on FT now, is it FT4? Is a contesting mode of FT8? Have you ever had to go at that?
No, I'm not bothered with that. In fact, at the moment, I'm off the air because my rig's acting up.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah. So you can have. I mean, on the weak signal modes, they've actually got a contesting mode now you can use. So.
Yeah, FT4. It's very like FT8, but twice as quick.
Okay.
But half as sensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. You always pay a price. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like PSK 31 and 63, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yeah, do you get any lamb chops?
Send us your orders for next time we get up there. When will we be going up there next time, eh?
Because when you're going to go up there next time, isn't it, with situations it is?
Yeah, all right. Shall we talk a bit about WPX, Peter?
Yes, Paul, you set the scene for next week. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, we have a meeting lined up for next Monday, a WebEx meeting, same time as this, and the view is to support anybody that wants to get involved with contesting and giving a go at the WebEx, at the WPX contest. So we're going to kind of run through the details of the contest, explaining what's going on and what the options are, because we have got some options of how we actually enter that, and the next bit is how you actually set up N1MM for that contest, so that we can actually take you through that and leave you with yet another PowerPoint, Chris. You'll appreciate that. Another PowerPoint which explains you step by step how you set up for that contest. So that's our plan for next Monday, and we're hoping that all or some of you are going to kind of participate with that and actually give it a go over the weekend. The weekend is the last weekend in March. I'm not sure what the date is.
27th and 28th.
Thanks, Tony. So it's over that period, but we don't have to operate the full 48 hours of the contest. We can dip in and out, and it's just how we manage that and how we upload the logs to the robot, etc., that we'll be going through. So anybody particularly interested at this stage or want to have a think about it?
Well, I'll probably be having a go anyway.
Right, yeah.
I'll have a go.
Good.
Probably am.
You, Chris, you're gonna, Kieran, Evan,
Yeah.
who else?
Maybe.
Carsten? Yeah.
What was the question? I was I was asked if I wanted to ask correspondence, so that was taking all my attention.
But the question was, have you got a microphone?
A microphone? I think I've got a headset somewhere.
Then we can hear you.
Gathering dust.
Are you going to participate in the WPX, Carsten?
Yeah, I have to put up a wire of some sort, but I plan on doing that.
Okay.
That's great. That's
Good.
great.
Good,
Anybody else? Heather? David? Yeah, great. Okay. So anyway, all right. So the invitation is join us next Monday, and we'll run through and leave you with the information you need, and deal with any questions, any issues you foresee at that stage. And as we go through the setting up process, then Pete and I and the others can help with any problems you may have best as we can over the phone. Is really the only way at this particular point in time. Should the times get back to normal at some stage, then we could perhaps do some more hands-on help getting you set up if it's necessary.
Bernard, with the 8th, Monday the 8th,
yeah,
it's only been sent out to the contest group members. You want me to send out an open invitation?
Please, yes, do that, Tony. Yes, yeah, thank you for that. Yeah.
It's probably worth mentioning that would be when you submit your log, you're submitting it in the name of Stockport Radio Society.
That's important.
So the more people, and it's you're prompted for the name. So when you come to submit your log, you just put Stockport, and it automatically says it puts the name in for you. But that all goes together with all the other logs, and then we move up the league table. I can't remember what it was. This we're 124th at the moment, something like that, wasn't it, Tom? I think we said.
Yeah, well, we've got
a target that we've got to get.
Yeah, that's right. We're not very high up on the league table actually. So shall we say we've got the vista, the whole uplands are in front of us like Boris Johnson. You know, we're coming out.
Don't bring him.
So the more entries we get, the more points we get, the further up the ladder we move.
We'll move on to this.
And what do the points make? Prizes.
Yeah, we'll move into the sunny uplands.
Yeah, so it means if all our members, all of us, go in and just make one QSO, that's going to give 100 points.
Yeah. That's right.
So if you only can get on for 10 minutes of the day, it's worth doing it and inputting it in to actually build on the
that's right.
points. So if we're doing about 128th in the world, so the target was to get into the first, was it the first 10 you wanted, Tom?
Oh, yeah, we should get up there. Yes, that's no problem at all. That's where we want to be. Yeah. Actually, are we going to, before you finish, are we going to say anything about the RSGB 80-meter contests and stuff like that, and the UKEI contests and these little short 1 hour, 1.5 hour things?
Well, since you've introduced it, Tom, do you want to kind of expand on it?
Well, I will do actually, because in fact it's one of my favourite things, and that is there's about every month, sometimes twice, 3 times a month, the RSGB has got a series of CC contests, actually, club championship contests. Again, in fact, you enter a Stockport RS, Stockport Radio Society, And basically, the contests are about an hour and a half long. They're an hour and a half long, and essentially you run them from home. They're generally on 80 meters, and there's SSB, and there's also CW for those that are interested in that. And of course, there's data modes in there as well. Actually, I personally don't actually do the data modes myself, but I take part in the SSB and the CW ones. There's also a similar contest, a 1 hour contest that's run under the auspices of what's called the UKEI. That's the Britain and Republic of Ireland contesting groups. And these are 1 hour contests. They're not quite the same format as the RSGB ones, where you're actually looking at counting numbers. So you go, number 1, number 2, number 3 as you make your QSOs. The Irish ones work more on the Maidenhead coordinates, actually. So you have to be able to write down a 6-figure coordinate as it comes over the air to you. And it needs a bit of care and attention, actually, if you're doing that contest. The other problem with the Irish one is you've got 1 hour to get the actual login. After that, you get a mention in dispatches for being late. Which I've had. So you can't afford to get it wrong, actually. These are both good contests actually for SSB and CW. And as I said, I'm not familiar with the data side of it, but those are two areas that I'd go for. There's also some additional ones actually, like the AFS contest that can be done from home. And there's also what used to be called the ROPOCO, which was the rolling postcode contest, which was run by the RSGB, where you had to take the postcode that you were given on the previous exchange and give that on the next one when you gave it yourself. And they've now changed it to they call it now the rolling locator, where you use the 4 or 6-figure Maidenhead locator instead of your postcode. So there's those contests as well, actually, in fact, which space out throughout the year. The beauty about those contests, which are generally sort of British Isles, although there's a great deal of people from France, Germany, Holland, Belgium, Denmark, Sweden, Poland, European Russia take part in them as well. The beauty about them is that they all work quite nicely on 80 meters, actually, at the time of night that they're set up for. So they're the kind of thing that can be run they're very nice local contests, and I would promote these actually as being things that people can do from home without actually having some of the sophisticated kit that we've got, and you can make a semi-decent score actually in them. And during this periods of lockdown, the RSGB's actually been running what's called a series of hope contests, which again is SSB, CW, and data, and they've been almost doing it on a daily basis. Now, I started doing these, but it got to be too much for me in the end, so I dropped out of that. But I do try to do the CCs, actually, which run throughout the year. And, of course, the beauty of all these things is you can actually take the results you've got and put them into Club Log, and actually, I mean, you may not get many DXs with them, but you get a lot of hits. Yeah. So anyway, those are things, and they're dead easy to find on the web. Go on to the RSGB contest webpage and simply go in there and you can look up the full details.
Yeah.
Okay. So if there's any questions on those contests, the local sort of fun contests, 1.5 hour, 1 hour ones, give me a ring and I'll put you right on them.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay.
Any questions from Tom's comments?
I've got to go, so I'll say good night to everybody.
Yep.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Keith.
Good
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Yeah.
Take care.
Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
No problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Have we covered everything, Pete?
I think so, yes. I mean, it's good to see that people are still on the video at the end.
There's still some people here, yeah.
So yeah, I think we're done. I think we've given enough to think about. I'll send all the slide set off to Heather, and I've got a PDF or which would prefer, PDF or PowerPoint? Which is your preference, Heather?
PDF, please.
PDF. I'll send you the PDF of the slides, and at the end of the slides there are some links, some URLs